Everything you're about to hear in this video are personal opinions, so if you disagree, I truly am sorry, but at the same time, I'm not truly sorry because they're my personal opinions. I like what I like, I hate what I hate. So with that being said, I'm about to rank all 41 Marvel projects right here, right now. Let's go. Hey guys, I'm Joel and welcome back to Locked on Marvel. And yes, you heard me correctly. I am about to rank all 41 Marvel projects from Phase 1 to Phase 4. There is no time to waste here, so I'm going to get right down to it. Now, I'm going to be moving pretty quickly, not really diving into detail about each ranking that I give each project. So, if you have any questions or comments about specific rankings that I give each project, let me know down in the comments below and I'll be happy to answer you. Starting in Phase 1, we have Iron Man, the movie that started it all. Robert Downey Jr. was the perfect casting for this role. We saw it in this movie and we saw it as it played out through the rest of the MCU up until Phase 4. This movie is the oldest MCU movie, but it has aged so well. Not quite an S for me, but I'm gonna give it an A. Alright, the next movie is The Incredible Hulk, and this one's an interesting one to rank as we have a completely new actor for Bruce Banner and the Hulk. Where it was Edward Norton, we now have Mark Ruffalo. In my personal opinion, this movie doesn't have the best CGI. It has some really cool scenes, some really cool moments, and an epic battle between Abomination and Hulk at the end. So it's kind of middle of the pack for me. I'm going to give it a C. Alright, next up is Iron Man 2. We get to see Tony Stark and Iron Man in full spotlight. And unfortunately, this movie, although it had very entertaining sequences and really cool character development, it just didn't do it for me. The villain Whiplash just wasn't developed enough. For me, I'm going to give this movie a C. Alright, the next movie is Thor, the God of Thunder, finally figuring out what it means to be human. Great story, but for me, it's not the most rewatchable movie. It has great CGI, super entertaining, Loki is amazing, but it's kind of middle of the pack for me. I'll give Thor a C. Next up is Captain America, the First Avenger. That is America's ass.
As far as I'm concerned, that's America's ass.
Captain America just has a beautiful story. Steve Rogers just wants to join the army. Too small and overall just not qualified. But he's got the right mindset. He's strong. He keeps pushing on and he finally gets his opportunity. The story we get to see in this movie is absolutely beautiful and it's so moving. This movie is definitely in the B category. Alright, and the final movie of Phase 1, when it all comes together, we get The Avengers. Marvel did it. This movie flows so well. Marvel superheroes coming together to fight against a larger threat. And Loki as the villain was incredible. Really the only thing that brings this movie down a little bit, and again, it's a really small thing, is they did my boy Hawkeye dirty, brainwashing him right off the bat. We didn't really get to see him in his full potential throughout the movie. Brings it down just a little bit for me. So not quite S for me, so I'm going to give it an A. Alright, starting off Phase 2, and unfortunately not starting it off super strong, we get Iron Man 3. Upon rewatch of this movie years down the road, this movie is quite entertaining and you can tell there's a lot of character development for the character of Tony Stark. Now, unfortunately, the movie as itself is just not very entertaining. I wasn't a big fan of the villain Aldrin Killian, he just didn't do it for me. And the fake out of the Mandarin actually being revealed to be the actor Trevor Slattery in the moment was a little disappointing. Obviously, we get to see him later down the road, so I look back and I laugh at it. But still, unfortunately, I have to give this movie a D. Next up is Thor Dark World, and honestly, this movie is underrated and kind of overhated as well. Yes, the Dark Elves weren't the most fun bad guys to watch in this movie, but Loki saves the day. Thor is amazing in this movie, but honestly, Loki outshines. Thor the Dark World gets a C. Alright, and now we're cooking. We have Captain America the Winter Soldier. This, I'm sorry, it's perfect. We have action thriller spy with some of Marvel's best fighting choreography I've ever seen. I will go back to rewatch this movie just for that opening scene. Captain America is a badass with America's ass.
That is America's ass.
If you couldn't tell, Captain America Winter Soldier gets my first S ranking. And the next movie up is Guardians of the Galaxy. With this movie, we get an outer space superhero family that is so much fun to watch. I love the characters, I love the music in this movie. The only thing I have against it is the villain, Ronan the Accuser. In my personal opinion, he was just a little too underdeveloped. But overall, this movie is so entertaining and so rewatchable. I'm gonna give it an A. Alright, and phase 2 is coming to a close with Avengers Age of Ultron. And can I just say, this movie is way too overhated. Yes, this plot was more messy than the first Avengers movie, but I can't tell you how entertaining this movie is and how many times I've gone back to rewatch it. I really love Ultron as a villain, and yes, we got to see more of him in What If, but that's not enough. Marvel, bring it back. So this might surprise you guys, but Avengers Age of Ultron gets a solid B from me. So if you thought that last ranking was a bit surprising, wait to see what I have to say about Ant-Man. Look guys, I just have to be honest. I love Ant-Man. Ant-Man is one of my favorite Marvel movies. I think it is super hilarious. I've rewatched the film so many times, and I am a huge Paul Rudd fan. So with that being said, I'm easily giving Ant-Man an A. And moving on to Captain America Civil War, aka Avengers 2.5, there's so many superheroes in this film. In this film, we now have Ant-Man with the introduction of Spider-Man and Black Panther. The big twist at the end revealing that Bucky killed Tony's parents had my jaw on the floor. And guys, Zemo was an incredible villain, manipulating, pulling all the strings behind the scenes. Incredible. Captain America Civil War gets another S from me. And next up is Doctor Strange. This movie was so trippy, the character development was on point, it was dark, it was tragic, and Dormammu was awesome. I love me some Doctor Strange. This movie gets a B. Next up is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I think this movie is a little underrated. It's not as good as the first movie, but it's still such an entertaining watch. Again, the music in this film is legendary. We get to see a lot of character development. There were a lot of entertaining sequences in this movie, but overall, I'm going to give this movie a C. After Captain America Civil War, we all couldn't wait to see Tom Holland play Spider-Man in Spider-Man Homecoming. This movie was so freaking cool. The gadgets, the suits, was so awesome to watch. And Vulture made an incredible villain. Spider-Man Homecoming gets an A. And moving along, we have Thor Ragnarok. For me, this is another perfect film. The director Taika Waititi absolutely nails this out of the park. This movie is hands down the best Thor movie to date. And Hulk is my favorite comic book character, and seeing the dynamic between him and Thor was so entertaining. Oh, and Hela as the villain was badass. Thor Ragnarok gets another S. The next movie is Black Panther. Losing Chadwick Boseman was gut-wrenching. He was the best casting for this role, and he did such an incredible job. This movie shows Wakanda for the first time, and it is so beautiful and stunning. Killmonger was an incredible villain. Oh, and the music and the score is absolutely legendary. I'm gonna give Black Panther an A. Next up is Avengers Infinity War, and oh my goodness, is this movie absolute perfection. There is literally nothing wrong with this movie, and you can't tell me otherwise. And I will literally go to my grave believing this is one of the greatest films of all time. Not in superhero history, but cinematic history. This movie is...
Stop it. Get some help.
Oh, and Thanos is my G. Avengers Infinity War gets an easy S with a chef's kiss. The next movie is Ant-Man and the Wasp, and unfortunately, I'm still riding the high of Infinity War here. At the time, I feel like we were so spoiled from Avengers Infinity War, Ant-Man and the Wasp felt like such a small movie. But looking back at this movie, it is so fun and entertaining. Like the first Ant-Man movie, this movie was so funny and had me laughing a ton. And Ghost as the villain was so cool, I kind of want to see more of that character in the future of the MCU. This movie also shows us the first glimpses of the quantum realm, and I am so excited to see more of it in the future. Ant-Man and the Wasp wasn't as good as the first one, but it's still a solid B. Now moving forward to Captain Marvel, and unfortunately, I'm still living on that high from Avengers Infinity War. Now if I'm being honest here, at this point, I'm just waiting for Avengers Endgame, and I really wanted to like Captain Marvel, but Marvel, I'm sorry, this movie just wasn't it. But Nick Fury was dope though. Captain Marvel, unfortunately, is going to get a D. And now the culmination of the entire Infinity Saga, we got Avengers Endgame. Again, this movie is perfect. What else do I say? It was such a beautiful ending to the Infinity Saga. Avengers Endgame is going to get an S for me. And next up, we sort of have the epilogue to Phase 3 with Spider-Man Far From Home. In my opinion, this movie was even better than Spider-Man Homecoming. Mysterio goes down as one of my favorite villains in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. His use of the projection technology and the Stark drones was so cool to watch. I mean, you didn't know what was real or what was fake. Spider-Man Far From Home is getting an easy A from me. And with the Infinity Saga ending, we now are on to the Multiverse Saga with Phase 4. The first project of Phase 4 is WandaVision, our first TV show. This was an incredible start to Phase 4. Every week, each episode was so unique and had our heads spinning with theories and speculation. It was an amazing and unique journey to go on. Unfortunately, the finale to me was just a little too rushed. But overall, it was an incredible show. I'm going to give WandaVision an A. And next up, we have Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Now, for me, this show just kind of falls in the middle of the pack. On one side, it was so fun to watch the dynamic between Bucky and Falcon. On the other side, the Flag Smashers as a villain, honestly, were just super forgettable. Overall, I'm going to give Falcon and the Winter Soldier a C. Now, did you think the only chef's kiss I was going to give was to Avengers Infinity War? Nah. Loki, mwah. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Loki Season 1 is by far my favorite MCU TV show. I theorized and speculated and nerded out on Loki Season 1 more than any other Marvel project to date. Everything about this show just worked. Mobius as a character was the perfect addition. Seeing the TVA for the first time was so entertaining. And I just gotta say, I called Kang showing up in the last episode, and he did. As He Who Remains, Jonathan Majors, you killed it, bro. Overall, this show had it all. Another S with a chef's kiss. Mwah. All right, and the next project up is Black Widow. All right, guys, I'm not gonna beat around the bush here. I just didn't like it. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not the worst movie. It's still pretty entertaining. It's just, to me, this movie felt really out of place. They decided to give Black Widow a solo movie after Avengers Endgame and after her death, and they decided to tell us more about her past, but honestly, I just feel like we didn't really learn anything at all. Yelena was great in this movie, the villain Dreykov was pretty good, but guys, I'm sorry, overall, I'm gonna give it a D. Alright, and next up we have the first animated project, What If? Now, I gotta tell you guys, I'm not the biggest animation fan, but this show was really good. It had a couple of misses here and there for me, but I thought that Doctor Strange and those Ultron episodes were insane. Overall, I really liked What If, and I can't wait for Season 2. I'm gonna give it a B. Next up is Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Like Captain America the Winter Soldier, the fighting choreography in this movie is insane. The music is hype and the CGI is incredible, especially that final battle. And we finally get to meet the true Mandarin, Wenwu, and he is such a good villain. I also think we still have more to learn about the Ten Rings and their potential connection to King the Conqueror. Overall, Shang-Chi was such a good movie. I'll give it an A. Moving on to The Eternals. Honestly, The Eternals was kind of confusing and slightly boring the first time I watched it in the movie theater. But for me personally, this is a film that actually got better the more I revisited it. There's a lot of characters introduced, and unfortunately some of them outshine the others. I believe this movie will feel more important and connect more once we learn a little bit more about the Eternals and the Celestials in the future. As time has gone, I've really enjoyed this movie. I'm gonna give it a B. Next up is Hawkeye. I don't have much to say other than I had a really good time watching the show. I thought it was a fun Christmas superhero show that made me laugh and gave me a good time. I did feel, however, the finale was a little rushed and I could have used a little bit more Kingpin. I had a good time with Hawkeye. I'll give Hawkeye a B. And now moving on to Spider-Man No Way Home. This third Tom Holland Spider-Man movie ends the trilogy with a bang. I had the greatest movie theater experience with this movie than I've ever had with any other. I am a strong believer in staying quiet and respecting others as they experience different movies. But for this movie, I threw that whole standard out of the window. When Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire came out of those portals, I absolutely lost it. Y'all, I can't do no backflip, but I thought I was gonna do one in that moment. But for me, it wasn't all about just fan service. This movie's story and character development was so rich and deep. And all of the villains did an amazing job, but Green Goblin took the show. Spider-Man No Way Home gets an S from me. Moving on to Moon Knight. Actor Oscar Isaac delivers a masterpiece. His acting and portrayal of dissociative identity disorder was really something. In my opinion, this was some of the best acting that we've ever seen in an MCU project. This show was super entertaining and really trippy. Like other TV shows, with this one, I feel like the finale was a little bit too rushed. Moon Knight was an awesome show. I'm gonna give it a solid B. I'm willing to bet that people will disagree with me most on my next take. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I'm just gonna say this. If you avoided getting caught up in all of the rumors, theories, and speculation behind this film before the movie came out, I'm gonna bet you really like this movie. I am a huge horror fan, and I think that director Sam Raimi totally knocked it out of the park on this one. Again, I might get some hate for this one, but Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is an easy S, no doubt. Next up is Miss Marvel. Miss Marvel was a fun watch. I liked the whole show, especially the first one. I really felt like I was immersed into an actual comic book. But if I'm being honest with myself, I felt like the show was targeted more towards the young audiences, and so I really didn't connect as much as I do with other TV shows and movies. Miss Marvel was super fun, but it kind of falls in the middle of the pack for me. So for that reason, I'm gonna give it a C. Next up is Thor: Love and Thunder. It's hard to feel that love, and I didn't feel that thunder. I'm not gonna go into detail about why I didn't really like this movie. I just didn't like it. Unfortunately, it's gonna get my first F rating. Moving on to I Am Groot. Now, I Am Groot is not a movie or a TV show. It's actually 5 2 to 3 minute shorts, but I still chose to kept it in this tier list to let you guys know how I felt about it. And what's not to love about Groot? While I was watching these 5 shorts, I don't think there was a moment where I ever stopped smiling. I Am Groot was such a fun watch. I feel like it's a little unfair to give it an A or an S just because it's not really a movie or TV show, so I'm just gonna give it a B. It was fun. Next up is She-Hulk. Guys, I usually like to stay positive, but with She-Hulk, I am so incredibly disappointed. When the show first started, I was having a ton of fun, and as each episode went by, I slowly lost all hope. She-Hulk is such an amazing and unique character from the comic books. She-Hulk is a fourth wall breaking character. And in the comic books, she has been known to actually tear through the pages of the book and actually talk to the writers. Marvel decided to lean into that aspect of this show just a little bit too much. She-Hulk got really meta and broke through the Disney Plus homepage, which, don't get me wrong, was super fun to watch. But this sequence of events happened in the very last episode and ultimately led to her rewriting the whole finale. So we went through a 9-episode TV show leading up to some form of finale that we had conjured up into our head, all for She-Hulk just to completely erase it and for absolutely nothing to happen. Look, I may be a little bit bitter about the show, but I feel like the writing was really, really bad. She-Hulk is an amazing character, and the actress Tatiana Maslany who played her did a really fantastic job. I really want to see She-Hulk in a future MCU project, but with a good story, with good writing. But She-Hulk is 100% getting an F. Next up is Werewolf by Night. Werewolf by Night was so cool. Again, I am a huge horror fan. This was just a special presentation, so it was around 45 minutes. To me, it was just too short. I wanted more. I can't wait to potentially see more Werewolf by Night in the future of the MCU. Right now, Werewolf by Night is not quite an A tier for me, so I'm just gonna give it a B. It was super fun. The next project is Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. I feel like I need to watch this movie a couple of more times to really formulate my true opinion, but my thoughts right now are that it's perfect. This movie was an impossible movie to make. After the tragic death of Chadwick Boseman, this movie's main priority was to honor him, and in my opinion, they did a fantastic job doing so. I also think the villain Namor and Talokan was so cool. Again, I can't wait to watch this a couple more times to really dive deeper. Right now, Wakanda Forever to me was a perfect film. I'm gonna give it an S. Alright, and last but certainly not least, we have Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. This was so fun and goofy. Whereas we all thought it was gonna showcase more of Star-Lord, the real story was focusing on Drax and Mantis, and I loved watching the silly and goofy dynamic between them two. Oh, and come on, Kevin Bacon. Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special wasn't a super connective project like other movies and TV shows are to the grand MCU, but I had a really good time watching it. For that reason, I'm giving it a solid B. Alright guys, that was my ranking of all 41 MCU projects from Phase 1 to Phase 4. And with the power of movie magic, I'm going to rearrange and shuffle them into my true rank order from first place all the way to last place. Alright, here it is. On screen is my in-order ranking of all 41 MCU projects. Notice my top 3, Avengers Infinity War, Avengers Endgame, and Thor Ragnarok. And unfortunately in last place, Captain Marvel, Thor Love and Thunder, and then She-Hulk. Alright guys, so what do you think? If you have any comments, any disagreements or agreements, go ahead and let me know down in the comment section below. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, turn on that notification bell. Thank you guys so much for watching. Stay locked on Marvel, and I will see you in the next video.